In this demonstration, I am going to walk you through a basic example of how to do group assignment in BunkMates. To perform a group assignment, we start by going to the Applications menu and selecting Groups from the dashboard. The Groups window breaks down the algorithm inputs into different sections. The first section is for data selection. We need to tell the algorithm which campers we want to include in the group assignment. When we select a unit, the bunks associated with that unit drop down. We can then include the bunks that we want. For our example, we're going to include Scooby-Doo characters and SpongeBob characters. On the right, we see that the algorithm has registered a selection of 2 bunks and 10 campers. Scrolling down, the next section is the parameters section. We use this section to decide how many groups we need for our assignment, as well as the minimum and maximum numbers of campers in each group. In our assignment, we will need 4 different groups, and we'll make sure each group has at least 1 camper. We're not going to set a max in this case because we're going to set upper bounds at the group level. To the right of the group section is the settings section. In this section, we can change how long the algorithm will run for. 99% of the time, these default values will work just fine. It's only when dealing with very complicated scenarios that the algorithm could take a little while to run. In this example, these values are fine, so we'll leave them. Next is the constraints section. This is where we define our groups. As we specified above, we have 4 different groups. Each group has a unique ID. We will use this later when setting preferences for each camper. We can change the name for each group. I will rename them after some of my favorite activities from my time at summer camp. Singles tennis, 2-on-2 basketball, pool, and lake. In singles tennis, we want exactly 2 campers, so we'll set the minimum and maximum campers in this group to 2. The algorithm will take the tightest bounds we give it, so these will override the min and max we set in the parameter section. Similarly, 2-on-2 basketball requires 4 campers. For pool and lake, we're not going to set a minimum, but we expect the minimum of 1 that we set earlier to override the zeros here. Let's say for this example, only 3 people are allowed in the pool or the lake at the time. The next section is for camper preferences. We can see all of the campers we selected in data selection. Right now, none of the campers have any preferences. If we scroll down and hit the Solve button, we expect to see the campers randomly spread into 4 groups according to all of the constraints we set. Notice that tennis has 2 campers, basketball has 4, and we have no more than 3 and no less than 1 camper at lake and pool. Let's say that SpongeBob's first choice is to play tennis. We can change his preference to group ID 1, and we see that tennis gets filled in as his first choice. When we hit solve, we see that SpongeBob is now assigned to tennis, and our other constraints are still working. Now let's try to create a more complicated scenario. Let's say all of the Scooby-Doo characters want to go to the lake, so they all put that as their first choice. But Freddy has a second choice, which is tennis, and he has a third choice, which is pool. We'll also add that Patrick and Sandy also want tennis as their first choice, but Patrick is also going to have a second choice, which is going to be the pool. Now before we hit solve, we can try and figure out what the algorithm should do. So we expect SpongeBob and Sandy to play tennis, as they have no other preferences other than those at the top. We expect a random 3-camper combination of Shaggy, Scooby, Daphne, and Velma to be assigned to the lake, because they all put that as their first choice. Since the lake can only have at most 3 people, one of them will end up being assigned somewhere else. Freddy isn't included in that list because he put down second and third choices. Since tennis is no longer available, he and Patrick are competing for the first spot at the pool. Since Patrick put the pool as his second choice and Freddy put it as his third, Patrick will get a priority over Freddy. This leaves the remaining 4 people, Freddy, Mr. Krabs, Squidward, and whoever was not included at the lake, to play basketball. Let's run it and make sure we get that result. And we do. Groups makes it fast and easy to make sure that every camper who can be assigned to one of their preferences gets placed in one of those groups.